Okay, welcome back to the video. I basically am done with the time acceleration all the way out to Saturn. I just arrived just before hitting record. I got to the point where it indicated that Saturn was the strongest gravitational influence. You can see that here on the orbit HUD. I'm about 50 days, I believe, away from Saturn. And I don't know how well it shows up in the playback, but that's Saturn right there. I brought up orbit, or I changed the orbit MFD so that it would show me Saturn, and I targeted Titan just to verify that Titan was in fact orbiting at 1.2 million kilometers, and according to orbit MFD it is. So now I'm going to just do a little bit more corrective maneuvering here. I want to get closer to the inclination. Of course, now it's saying here that the inclination is 27 degrees. Wikipedia said it was basically 0. That's interesting. Let me see if I start setting up a transx plan now. And also what I'm going to do at this point is Control S to save the scenario right here where I'm at. I might actually get in a little closer and save it again. But I do think that at some point I want to attempt to close the distance to Saturn and maybe try to do some atmospheric braking. And while I'm still out here quite a way, I can make some adjustments to the altitude without burning too much fuel. Because Saturn is much smaller than Jupiter, I think it might be possible to do atmospheric braking, and I'd like to find out. But that's not something to concern myself with now. So at Saturn, we're saying that we're going to want to target Titan. Okay, so that'll give us the encounter view on that side. And let's turn maneuver mode on. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And let me just play with the variables to see, what does what. Okay, so quite a bit of prograde there just to bring the closest approach down. I don't think that's going to be the best one, so let's skip prograde and go to outward. Before we actually do that, let's bump the date out to 6611. That'll give me 14 minutes to set this up. And right there, it's good enough. Okay, now let's see what outward does. Okay, it's not requiring as much as prograde was, so now let's see if we can incorporate a little bit of plane change. Looks like right about there is the lowest. And back over to outward now. Okay. Plane change. And now we've got our encounter view, so this will help us dial this in. Okay, now let's go to plane change again. Let's go down to ultra setting. Back to outward. And we're getting in pretty close. So we've got that all the way down to about 3 kilometers and it's climbing, so that's pretty good. I don't know how well that's going to hold, because as we get closer to Jupiter, or rather Saturn, we're going to run into this issue where we've got so many orbital bodies. You know, obviously we've got the planet Saturn itself, and then we've got all the moons of Saturn. So each one of those bodies is a source of gravity, and all those sources of gravity are going to have an impact on TransX's reliability. Again, TransX is a two-body math model, so when you have the more bodies that you add in, the more inaccurate this becomes. So what I'm going to do is bring this over to the other side of Titan like that. And you can see now it's actually coming down. Now, okay. Okay, it says our periapsis velocity is going to be 9,000. And our capture delta is 6,000. Now the thing about Titan is that it has a really, really thick atmosphere. I mean, the atmosphere of Titan is like a bowl of pudding. It's just incredibly thick. So I'm thinking we might be able to use the atmosphere of Titan to slow us down. We might not have to do a main engine burn. On the other hand, it's so thick that it may just cause us to incinerate on the spot. That's probably the more likely outcome. At any rate, we'll just have to play with it and see what happens. So let's close that out. Bring up view target on this side.
Rotation.
Get our vessel rotated. Okay, gonna warp time ahead to get closer to the time to do the burn. I wonder why the inclination is so different. That's because the altitude that Wikipedia gave me was right, but apparently the inclination, unless I just read it wrong. Weird. Okay, gonna begin the burn in Just a few seconds here. Okay, let's go back to real time. Okay, and burning in 5, 2, 1. Burning. A bit of a burn there, 200 worth of delta V. Backing off the main engines.
Translation.
Okay, so now we've got to go 58,631. So yeah, about 50 days. Let's go prograde to Saturn.
Rotation.
We've gone through Titan and coming out the other side. So we're probably going to need another corrective burn. Definitely going to need another corrective burn. Let's get in a little further before we worry about it. Now let's go in the other direction. See, all those gravitational bodies are just, makes for relatively inaccurate MFD readouts. I'm going to come back to real time here. I'm going to control S again, save here at 0.80 on the gravitational indicator for Saturn. And let's warp time ahead some more. Okay, that's... Okay. Okay, we're going to get in much closer to Saturn than I originally anticipated, but we're going to kind of sling around it and then catch up with Titan on the other side. I would actually rather not do that, because when I come into Saturn, it's just going to start pulling me in and speeding me up. I would actually rather catch Titan on the outskirt of Saturn before I get to it, before I get to Saturn, because then I'm going slower. But it didn't work out that way. Because you can see right now my orbital speed relative to Saturn is 6,000. It's a fairly manageable number. So if I could catch Titan out here, I've still got 3 million kilometers to go before I'm in the orbit of Titan. And if I could catch it out here before I reach Saturn, then I would be going slower. But if I pass it and go around Saturn, then Saturn's going to do the slingshot thing. It's going to speed me up and whip me around the other side. It's going to increase my velocity significantly. So that's just something to keep in mind for future flights here. If you can catch the moon on the incoming path, you're better off. Alright, now Well, maybe I am catching it on the incoming path. I don't know, we'll find out. Okay, back over here. Maneuver mode on. And we'll start going through the variables, but first we'll bump the timeout. And we'll give ourselves 7 minutes. So we want basically 7100. About right there, that'll give me roughly 7 minutes. Okay, that's the wrong way. Okay, and that's coming down, so let's plan on being a little on the high side, assuming it's going to continue going down. Maybe like that, we'll see. Close that out, bring up view target.
Translation. Rotation.
Okay, fairly small burn in a little over 4 minutes. It's warp time ahead to get to that point. Okay, real time. Make sure our X is lined up. Burning in 3 seconds. And burning.
Translation.
Maneuver mode off. Let's check our encounter. 566 and coming down. Now we are 58631, so we're 9 days away. Warp time ahead. Let me go prograde to Saturn, just to see what's going on. Plus we get a lovely view. Okay, we're here. Two days away from our encounter with Titan. Go ahead and warp time in a little bit. There's our target moon right there. Welcome to Saturn and all of its many moons.
Rotation.
Good looking planet. It's the show off of the solar system. And there's Titan. So let's get in a little closer. Yeah, it looks like we're going to, we're going to reach Saturn's periapsis and then sling around and then catch up with Titan out there. So we are going to get that sling effect that I was talking about. You can see our velocity is continuing to increase all the way here until we reach periapsis in 5,000 seconds, and then we'll start slowing down as we pull away from Saturn. Now we're slowing down. And there's Titan. Okay, now I'm going to control S again here and work my way over to Titan. And I'm going to see if I can do some combination of atmospheric braking at Titan mixed in with maybe some retrograde. We'll see. Again, the atmosphere is definitely thick enough for atmospheric braking, but our velocity might be too high. That's going to be my concern. Alright, let's go ahead now and set up another maneuver, because obviously we can't cut straight through the center of Titan. That won't work. Bump this forward to about 7,900. That should give me 6 minutes or so, roughly. Alright, I did something wrong, so let me turn maneuver mode off. What's up with all this stuff? TransX is acting up on me. It's doing something strange. Something I do need to do, though, to bring up Titan and select my base. Okay, let me do this. That gets rid of that stage. Now let me reselect Titan. And apparently that didn't help. Still getting all this weird information. TransX, what are you doing to me right now? Okay, maneuver mode off. Okay, that gets rid of the... yeah. Okay, now... select target. What is going on? You got me. Why is it showing this hypothetical line from Saturn all the way out this way? What's that all about? Have to do it a more crude way. I don't know, for some reason TransX is just, it's like giving me errors or something. I don't know what it's doing. Let's warp time ahead a little bit, get a little closer to Titan. So right now I'm rotating retrograde to Titan so that I can use the main engines to slow myself down, because without the aid of TransX I don't have really any prayer of doing atmospheric braking. I don't think it'd work anyway. I think I'd be going too fast. I don't know if I have enough fuel to slow myself down though. So the vertical and lateral are almost zero. So I've got 9,000 meters per second worth of velocity heading to Titan. So how long does it take to eliminate 9,000 meters per second worth of velocity? Using the main engines. 9,000, let's put in 9,100. $530 seconds of burn. And we need to do that burn when we're 158 kilometers away from Titan. Well, if I can at least slow myself down a lot, then I can probably use the atmosphere to do the rest. I would sure love to know why I'm not able to use TransX right now. So everything here at Saturn is right. Maybe I need to do this. Turn advanced on. I don't know. Let's close the distance over to Titan. So when we're at 158, according to this number, that's when we're going to engage our engines. Actually, we're slowing down. That's actually good. So instead of 9,000, wait a minute. I think I put in way too large of a number. Yeah, I did. Good thing I caught that. Okay. So when we're at 2,400 kilometers, that's when we engage the engines. Is that right? Bring up an external MFD. Want to have, yeah, orbit MFD up. Okay, now Titan is the strongest gravitational body. let's do this. Okay, we're currently retrograde to Titan.
Translation. Rotation.
And right now our periapsis is showing that it's cutting straight through the middle. Obviously we don't want that.
Translation.
So let's
Rotation.
start by rotating 90 degrees off center so we can bring the periapsis up to the surface at least. Wait a minute.
Translation. Rotation. Translation. Rotation.
Oops. Overshot. Okay, the periapsis is coming up. Well, since Titan's the strongest gravitational influence, I believe we can actually use burn time calculator to tell us when to do the burn. If we wanted to circularize, which don't exactly want to do, but something like circularizing around Saturn, just to slow us down at least, or around Titan. I don't have enough fuel for it. Ugh. Almost 8,000 worth of delta V, so I think the best I'm going to be able to do is just slow down as much as I can, and then hopefully hope that it's enough to use Titan's atmosphere the rest of the way. Bummer. And I've never got a chance to line up with the base. Alright, well, let's warp time ahead, just see what happens. Let's go retrograde. obviously burning, but I've got to watch the altitude.
Mach 22.
Okay, we got to stop burning now. We're getting atmosphere. Let's go prograde. This isn't going to work. Kaboom! Forgot to close the radiator, forgot to close the retro doors, but I wasn't expecting to come up to the atmosphere that quick. Yeah, we're pretty warm. We're still trying to slow down. Haven't even closed in the eccentricity yet. Yeah, I never would have had enough fuel for this, and even if I burned through all the fuel that I had, I wouldn't have been able to survive the atmosphere. Interesting stuff. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I will have to pick it up from one of the previous save points and try something else at another time. Alright, if you enjoyed this part of the video, or if you enjoyed the whole video, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you next time. And let's turn maneuver mode on. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And let me just play with the variables to see, what does what. Okay, so quite a bit of prograde there just to bring the closest approach down. I don't think that's going to be the best one, so let's skip prograde and go to outward. Before we actually do that, let's bump the date out to 6611. That'll give me 14 minutes to set this up. And right there, it's good enough. Okay, now let's see what outward does. Okay. Okay, welcome back to the video. I basically am done with the time acceleration all the way out to Saturn. I just arrived just before hitting record. I got to the point where it indicated that Saturn was the strongest gravitational influence. You can see that here on the orbit HUD. I'm about 50 days, I believe, away from Saturn. Yeah, I don't know how well it shows up in the playback, but that's Saturn right there. I brought up orbit, or I changed the orbit MFD so that it would show me Saturn, and I targeted Titan just to verify that Titan was in fact orbiting at 1.2 million kilometers, and according to orbit MFD is Control S to save the scenario right here where I'm at. I might actually get in a little closer and save it again, but I do think that at some point I want to attempt to close the distance to Saturn and maybe try to do some atmospheric braking, and while I'm still out here quite a way, I can make some adjustments to the altitude without burning too much fuel. Because Saturn is much smaller than Jupiter, I think it might be possible to do atmospheric braking, and I'd like to find out. but that's not something to concern myself with now. So at Saturn, we're saying that we're going to want to target Titan. Okay, so that'll give us the encounter view on that side. It is. So now I'm going to just do a little bit more corrective maneuvering here. I want to get closer to the inclination. Of course, now it's saying here that the inclination is 27 degrees. Wikipedia said it was basically 0. That's interesting. Let me see if I start setting up a transx plan now. And also what I'm going to do at this point, it's not requiring as much as prograde was, so now let's see if we can incorporate a little bit of plane change. Looks like right about there is the lowest. And back over to outward now. Okay.